Welcome to Travel Babble with Basha. I am Basha, your hostess to fly you through this process today. Are you looking to do a lot of international travel? Are you confused about what type of documents you need? Never fear, I am here to help you fly through the process and through the airport. Let's start with the passport. You will need a passport book for international travel. In some cases, such as a closed loop cruise, which means it starts and ends at the same U.S. port, you may be able to travel with just a birth certificate and a government-issued ID. However, it is not recommended. What if you need to depart the ship? What if you become sick or you get injured on a shore excursion and need to go to the hospital? What if something has happened to one of your loved ones back home and you need to fly home? Without a passport, you will have trouble getting on that flight to get back home. Better safe than sorry. To apply for a passport, it's not that difficult. It does take patience. Go to the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Consular Affairs website. I'll drop that link in the comments below. Feel free to comment as well on anything that you feel needs to be done. This site will walk you through the process. But basically, you download the application, you take your patience as you go to fill in the application, you get your picture taken within certain parameters which will be listed, and you need some type of evidence of your citizenship. The easiest way to prove citizenship is to either have an old passport or a birth certificate. Keep in mind that birth certificate must meet certain requirements which will be listed on the website. Passports typically take 8 to 11 weeks till you get them back from the passport agency. I have gotten a passport back in a week. I've also known people who it has taken much longer. Don't wait till the last minute. You may be able to expedite your passport if you have waited. Of course, there is an extra fee to that. You can even expedite it faster than the 5 to 7 weeks that a normal expedition would take to get it if you need it within the next 14 days, and in some cases, maybe overnight. Of course, in order to do that, you need to have all your paperwork in a row. You need to have imminent travel plans which you can prove, and they have to be for emergency reasons. Now, I know you're probably wondering, how much is this passport going to cost me? Well, a U.S. passport is $165. If you're renewing it, it's going to be $130 if you're in the U.S. or Canada. However, if you're in another country and you need to apply for a U.S. passport, you need to look on the website because there's going to be a different fee schedule. There are some cases where you can apply online, but there are also cases where you must apply in person. Generally, if it's your first U.S. passport, you have to apply in person. If you're under the age of 16, or your previous passport was issued when you were under the age of 16. If your previous passport was lost, stolen, or damaged, other than normal wear and tear, you need to apply in person. And if your U.S. passport was issued more than 15 years ago. Again, this is good for 10 years. I recommend renewing it as soon as you have less than or right at 6 months. Why is that? Many countries that you go to visit require that you have at least 6 months left on your passport or they will not let you enter. Imagine you've booked that trip. You're ready to go. You're ready to board the airplane and you're refused boarding because your passport is only good for another 5 months. It doesn't matter that you were only going for 2 weeks. If that country has a requirement, and many do, they will not let you board. I always make sure around that 9-month period that I start renewing it so that I will have it back and be ready to go when there's only 6 months. Of course, if you travel frequently, that may be difficult to do, so you do have to schedule that and think about that when you go to apply. It will relieve a lot of stress and wondering, will it show up on time? What if I want to have a last-minute trip and my passport is about to expire or I don't have one? I've done this a few times. I've taken my passport with me and I've decided to board a flight and go somewhere to another country. It doesn't happen as much these days, but I have done it, I even got extra pages in my passport book just so I could travel more. If you travel internationally quite frequently, it may be worth your while to look into other available options to speed up the process, either to get through security at the U.S. airports or possibly to get through immigration when you come back into the U.S. If you travel primarily domestically by air, there's something called TSA Precheck. Now, we all know the TSA agents. They're the ones that you go through, you scan all of your goods. You may stand in the scanner with your hands up, or they may pat you down. You may go through an x-ray machine. You want to get through that faster. And you don't want to be the person who has to take your belt off, take your shoes off, take your jacket off, feel like you're taking everything off, and then you're unpacking your bag because you have to take out your liquids, you have to take out your electronics, and you know we travel with a lot of electronics these days. You may want to apply for what we call TSA Precheck. This allows you to get through security faster. Now, this is for people who are 13 years old and over. Don't worry, if you have a child that is 12 and under, they can go through with a parent who has Precheck. It will allow you to keep your shoes on, to keep your electronics in the bag, to not have to take off your jacket and your belt. They can still require that, and they may still ask you randomly to do that, or they may randomly pull you aside. However, you've gone through security, you've filled out the forms, they've done a limited background check on you, you may have to do an interview, but it gets you through security a lot faster. In many airports that allow this, there is a special line for Precheck. You get in that line, it is usually much shorter. One of the airports that I go through, in the concourse that I go through, they don't have a separate line for Precheck. I get in the regular line, so I still have to wait in line. But when I get up to the front, they put a special sticker on me or on my boarding pass that I still don't have to take off my shoes and my jacket. So I still have to wait in line, but I don't have to strip or take off everything out of my suitcase. In January of 2023, 92% of people who had TS Precheck waited less than 5 minutes to get through security. Think about that if you travel domestically. How much does it cost? It's about $85 membership. It's good for 5 years, and then you renew it. Some people may have a travel or airline credit card that will reimburse you the expense, so be sure to check that out. However, let's say you want to travel internationally at least once a year. There's another program called Global Entry. Now, I have Global Entry. It makes my life easier. The nice thing about Global Entry is it includes TSA Precheck. It costs $100 for 5 years. That's only $15 more than just getting TSA Precheck. For that extra $15, I get to go through a different process. I get to fill out a lot of forms, and it takes a little bit longer, and I have to go through an interview. However, when I get back into the United States off an international flight, it must be into an international terminal. Instead of going to immigration with everybody else, I go to another immigration line, generally much shorter. There are kiosks there. I can swipe my passport. I maybe need to show my card. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I put my fingers on. They take a fingerprint scan because they took my fingerprints when I enrolled in the program to start with. They look and do a facial recognition perhaps, and I'm through. It prints out a piece of paper. It generally gives me a check mark. I go over as I'm going through. I show it. There's a person standing there from Border Patrol. They look at it, and they see me, and they let me go through. Again, they can randomly pull people aside to go through another process, but it is so much easier. Now, I do travel by cruise ship a lot of times. Global Entry supposedly does not help me get back through faster in that cruise ship debarkation line. What it does, I found, I stick it in my passport. You can see it sticking out. I hand it to Border Patrol, and they always pull it out and hand it back to me and say, oh, we don't need Global Entry. But what I have noticed is I still get through faster. I notice they look at my passport, they look at me, and I'm gone. Whereas the person beside me, especially if it's, say, a transatlantic, you're coming from another country, they ask that person more questions. They don't question me. Even though they say they're not using a global entry, I feel like it does get me through faster. Now, there's one other program that is out there. It's called Clear. I, to be honest, have never gotten Clear for myself. What does Clear do? It helps you cut the line. You go to one of the machines, and it's only in select airports. I know it is expanding, but it is not in every airport now. But you get to bypass that part where you show your boarding pass, whether electronically or by paper. They check it, they look at the passport, they look at you, make sure everything coincides, and then you go through. By using Clear, you walk up to a machine, and it uses your biometric data. It may do fingerprint, it may do eye scan to verify that your identity, and then you go to the front of the line. Now that's nice, especially if you have also TSA Precheck. You go to the front of the line, plus you don't have to take everything off and take everything out of your bags. You are through in no time flat. However, because, as I said earlier, with TSA Precheck, 92% of the people were through in 5 minutes or less, and I don't necessarily fly through airports that have Clear or that I need it. Now, how much does Clear cost? It is $879 per year. If you're flying a lot through major airports that have long lines, it is definitely worth it. However, if you're flying through smaller airlines or smaller airports, you may not need Clear, especially if you have TSA Precheck, because that line is already shorter. You just need to wait in the line. You can't jump to the front. Those are several documents that you really should get if you're doing international travel. Some that are very nice to have if you're traveling once a year or even more. I've found this comes in handy. And then Clear if you're traveling from a larger airport. Hope that answered some questions. If you have more questions on any of these documents, I'm learning all the time just as you are. Please drop a comment down below. Subscribe, like my channel. Let's go. It is now time to pack our bags.